Madge, these paintings are stupendous. How do you do it? We were standing in Marjorie's home studio, looking over her latest art piece. Madge and I had met in college, and she was an accomplished artist even then. She'd come a long way from opening the tiny student center auditorium at our college, and now she had her own gallery in the village where most of her artwork was displayed. I'd always loved her eye for detail, but this was better than anything I'd ever seen. This was next level, so beyond anything, and I was just astonished at how far my friend had come. Madge laughed, swirling her wine as she looked lovingly at her latest piece. It really is. I've had offers already, and it hasn't even been shown anywhere besides my little spot in the village. I wish I could get this level of detail in my writing. Oh, come on, your writing is amazing. Every story is so immersive, it's like my own little movie. I guess, but I can't seem to get any of those details from my last work. I just can't seem to get past this middle part. It's been giving me fits. Well, Madge said, giving me a coy look, maybe you need to use my latest find. Latest find? I asked, not sure what she was talking about. What have you found now? Madge was always trying out new ways to focus and inspire her work. In the time I had known her, Madge had tried dozens of diets, different workout routines, and mental stimulation techniques, meditation rituals, and all manner of other things. It was admirable. Madge really believed in her work, but it seemed she was always on her latest find. She took me down a hallway and opened a door onto a white room with a large black pod sitting in it. What is that? I asked, intrigued. It's called the egg. It was aptly named. It looked a bit like an egg. It was an egg-shaped metal bed that was fully enclosed and set on a small raised platform. It was the only thing in the room and dominated it completely. I could see a hatch that would open up the top of the egg so that someone could get in, and I wondered what was in that strange container. Water, maybe, or perhaps just a comfortable place to meditate. It's a sensory deprivation tank, Madge said, and it's supposed to cut you off from outside stimuli so that you can tap into the most primal part of your inner mind. Does it work? Well, you saw the paintings. You tell me. I put a hand on the outside of the pod and felt how smooth it was. It was metallic smooth, like the smoothness of a dolphin's skin. It was oily and a little slippery, and I wondered how she climbed into this thing without falling down on her ass. I was also intrigued. If this thing could take her work to the level that I'd seen it, then what could it do for me? Do you want to try it? Madge asked. Could I? She laughed. Well, of course, silly. I wouldn't have brought you here if I didn't intend to let you try it out. I ran my hand along it again. Did I really want to climb inside the strange metal cocoon? I had to admit that even looking at it was giving me ideas. Just being around it, I felt like I could see where I was going wrong a few chapters in. If I could change those chapters, then the book might progress smoothly, and I could get back to work. That made me wonder what revelations I could discover by climbing inside. I nodded, and Madge unhooked a pair of clasps and tipped the dome up. There were little grooves carved into the side of it, the side that I hadn't seen, and I stepped up and looked into the egg. There was nothing but a cushy seat inside, and as I sat down, I felt incredibly comfortable. The chair was one of those backside devouring numbers, The ones that are like sitting on a cloud. I'll set the timer for about 30 minutes, Madge said. But if you feel like you're getting claustrophobic, just bang on the side. I won't go far. I nodded, honestly unsure what to expect, and as the top of the egg came down, it was suddenly cut off from everything. Many of you have probably never experienced true silence. I'm here to tell you that it's pretty weird. There were no lights inside the egg. No sound got in through the cracks. I knew I was inside, but as I reached out to touch it, I couldn't even feel it. We take feeling things with our fingers for granted, but touching the inside of this was like touching nothing. I tried to control my breathing, but it really was feeling a little claustrophobic. I sat back, though, trying to get comfortable as the oppressive darkness crept in on me. It reminded me of the darkness I found in my room when I was a little girl. The door closed, the shadows moving as my imagination ran wild. I blinked, my eyes hungry for light of any kind, and as I did, I became aware that the inside was lighting up. Not a lot. It wasn't one of those let there be light kind of things, but the darkness softened some. It reminded me of the purple darkness that you sometimes see in shows with space travel. I was moving, too, moving forward as if on a rail, and I could see something coming up before me. It was small, a blip on the horizon, but as I got closer, it started to grow. I was traveling at a relative speed, like I was riding in a car or something. And when the outside came into focus, I realized I was looking at a massive door. The door was... I don't know how to describe it, honestly. Eldritch, timeless, elven maybe. Whatever it was, it looked like it had just arrived in space in the early days of anything and set up shop. There were these things etched into the frame, words or symbols that I couldn't understand, and on the front was a word that I could. It was in big letters, the kind that belong in a kid's picture book. The big block letters spelled out inspiration, and I supposed it would have inspired me to write something. I had come to rest at the edge of the little mound of earth it sat upon, and I was surprised to find that I could stand up and walk towards it. It was easily 30 feet high, half again as wide, and the closer I got, the louder the whispers became. I could hear something whispering, the pervasive kind of whispering that you hear in horror movies, and it was coming from the cracks in that massive door. I put my ear to it and began to listen, and it told me a story I had never heard before. I'd already discovered how to get over the hump that was holding me up, but the door gave me a new story as well. It was a better tale than the one I had so diligently worked on, and I felt foolish for ever starting it. This story was a bestseller. A bestseller, if ever there was one. I drank it in like manna, wanting to get all of it, but as it told me the secrets of my next great work, there was suddenly a bright intrusion of light. I felt my eyes screaming and thought that I must surely go blind. The light would cook my brain right out of my head, and I'd die right here beside this huge door. But when someone shook me, I opened my eyes slowly as I realized I was still in the egg. "Are you okay? You said 30 minutes. Did you..." She stopped, clearly seeing something on my face that she didn't like. "Are you okay?" I was looking around frantically, not entirely sure what was happening, but as Madge put a hand on my arm to steady me, I came back to myself. I was in her side room, inside this strange object that she had bought for her art. I had been using it to help me with my book. I'd seen the door. I'd heard the story. "It's wild, isn't it?" Madge said. grinning as she helped me climb out. I nodded, but I didn't think she understood how right she was. It was weird going back to life as I'd known it after seeing that door. It was like the door had been some vaguely remembered other life, or like a video game I had played and lived another life through. It faded over me, but what didn't fade was the story it had given me. I went home and immediately set to work on it. It was amazing, something that I had never known, that I wanted until it had been shown to me. I sequestered myself for weeks, furiously writing until I had it all down. But that was when the trouble started. Reading over it, making changes, making edits, I started to see that what I had wasn't right. This wasn't the beautiful story that the door had sung into me. I'd butchered it. This was a chop job, but it was the best I could do. As I went through it, I knew this wouldn't cut it. I needed to do better. The story had actually begun to fade a little in my mind, and I knew that if I wanted this second draft to be as good as it could be, as good as the one the door had whispered to me, I would need to hear it again. Madge laughed when I called her and asked if I could use the egg. Got a little touch of the old writer's block, do you? That's okay, the egg will fix you up. Come on over tonight. I'll take care of you. She sounded a little funny on the phone, but I didn't realize that at the moment. Her laughter went a little too high, her voice was a little too shrill, and her mood was a little too jolly. She sounded drunk, but that wasn't outside the norm for her. I figured she was celebrating a big piece or a gallery showing, and headed over to her place. When she opened the door and welcomed me in, I was, again, pretty sure that she was drunk. She looked rough. Her hair was greasy and unwashed, hanging about her head like a stringy curtain. She wasn't wearing makeup. She had traded her usual sweaters and capri pants for sweats and a baggy t-shirt. She was thinner than I remembered, and I wondered if she'd been eating regularly. If I hadn't been half out of my mind already, I probably would have been more worried. I didn't have time to worry. I needed my story. Glad you're here. You can take a look at the stuff I've been working on. Madge had always been a prolific artist, but now the walls of her living room and dining room were full of new art that she had created. The canvases, well, they were something. Madge's art had always been soft, maybe even a little naive, but this new stuff was like cave paintings. They were charcoal and dark smears of what might have been feces. They were like the magic pictures I had seen in books as a kid. The pictures were shapes and odd formations, but once you saw it, it was impossible not to see. "They're so good," she said, the sound of her lighter very loud as she lit a cigarette. "These are so different from anything I've ever done." "Have you got a buyer yet?" I asked, a little awestruck. "I bet you could sell these for a—" "Sell them?" Madge sounded scandalized. "These are my babies. Oh, no. These are gifts from my muse, from the egg." "From the door?" I asked, and Madge looked at me like she had never seen me before. "You've seen it too," she whispered. She sounded like she was afraid to wake it up. It gave me my new story. That's why I'm here, Madge. I need to see it again. I need this second draft to be amazing. I need it to be perfect." "Are you going to give it to your editor?" I started to say that of course I would, but I couldn't. Why hadn't I given my first draft to my editor yet? I was so worried about this book being perfect, but now I was curious why I hadn't shared it with my editor. Why hadn't I shared it with Madge, for that matter? I'd always shared things with her, but it had never even occurred to me with this one. That should have been a second tip-off, but like I said, I was hungry for my story. "I need to use the egg," I said, and she nodded as she took me to the little room. It was different now. It had been pristine before, but now the floor was littered with refuse. Chip bags, soda cans, the leavings of old meals, all the trappings of a life lived behind the door, or inside the egg. "Sorry," she said sheepishly. "I should have cleaned up a little. I knew you were coming, but I just... It's fine," I said, putting her mind at ease. "I came over spur of the moment." She opened the egg, and I was hit with the smell of old sweat and unwashed skin. I had to wonder if Madge had been living in this thing, and as I climbed in, I had to hold my breath as the smell wafted over me. It was intense, but that was the price of doing business. If I wanted the book, then I would have to pay the toll. "How long do you want?" she asked, and she sounded hesitant to close the bubble. She sounded like she might like very much to climb in with me. "Give me an hour," I said, and Madge nodded as she closed the shell behind me. As the shell closed, the smell encased me. It didn't last long. It was soon enveloped in that all-encompassing silence as I drifted away. I opened my eyes to find that I was once more floating through the darkness, flying towards the door again. I was moving closer, the door rising before me. It was as huge as I remembered it, and the runes still marking the outside. As I approached the crack between the door and the jamb, I started hearing the whispers again. I listened, I refreshed myself, and I heard what I had forgotten. I knew how to make it great. I knew how it could be completed. I listened again and again, like a child hearing their favorite bedtime story. But over time, the story began to change. It changed, and it expanded. The door told me many stories, so many that my mind began to spin. It was too much. I shouldn't have done more than 30 minutes. The stories were too much. I was getting too much. My head was going to explode. Madge was going to have to clean me out of this thing when I was done, popping like a grape. I could feel the veins thrumming on the side of my head, and I just knew that any minute, any second, I was going to... The light, the all-enveloping light, was suddenly filling my eyes when Madge opened the egg. I threw my arms around her and hugged her tightly. "Thank you. God, thank you." Madge didn't hug me back. Instead, she started trying to push me out of the egg. I was a little bigger than her, so it was hard to manage, but as I got the hint and climbed out, Madge climbed in and grabbed the edge of the shell. "I need to be back in," she mumbled before the lid slammed shut. "You've been in there long enough. It's my turn." She pulled it shut behind her, and it was the last time I ever saw her. I tried to get the lid up, wanted to warn her, but there must have been some kind of latch on the inside or something. I couldn't get it open, and I couldn't get her to come out, so finally I just went home to finish my book. It's perfect now. There's no gaps or problems with it. It's as good as I can make it, and that is as close to perfect as it'll ever be. Madge still hasn't called me. I don't think she ever will. I'm looking at the finished manuscript, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Every time I think about sending it to my editor, I get this overwhelming feeling of anxiety that I just can't do it. Maybe someday when the constant ring round the rosy of stories stops spinning around my brain. But not today. I'm afraid of the egg, afraid of what it could do to me, but I'm also tempted to go purchase my own. I suppose then Madge and I can have matching coffins when they find us dead within the egg.